Just saw Dark Phoenix. Gotta be honest, can't understand the hate. Honestly, it was a fun X-Men film with all that X-Men nonsense I love so much, you know? Just like Apocalypse. Now, on a personal note, I will say that I might have preferred Apocalypse to be the last film because uh, it might have provided a slightly more like uplifting note to end the franchise on. Like tonally, it was a better balance for me, but that doesn't speak to the quality of either film. Like Apocalypse is still my favorite, but I don't think that Dark Phoenix was uh, a step in the wrong direction. It's a finally made film, and like I don't even notice visuals of films that much, but it did seem to be like well shot too. Um, for one thing, I think that the uniform of the main team popped better on screen than I would have expected. I still would have preferred the costumes that were like teased at the end of Apocalypse. Like that would have been a good look, but uh, the aesthetic in this film worked. It hung together pretty well. It goes back to that old like Frank Quitely design from like Grant Morrison's new X Men series, and I wasn't the biggest fan of that art. I mean, like the dude's a great artist. It just didn't really hit me in the right way. But like even I could tell that his designs were pretty good. Um, Even if he drew Cyclops with an insanely puffy jacket sometimes, which wasn't a problem in this film. Um, Also, one thing I noticed, and I didn't realize it in the last film, but I've come to realize that Ty Sheridan might have won the role of Cyclops in large part by virtue of his mouth. Like that, like little. I don't even. I mean, my lips aren't small, but I don't know if I can express myself in a way that can replicate what his mouth does to capture the like perfect blind uh, pout of Cyclops. Like it's pure Cyclops on screen. It's amazing. Like, no, I don't know if I can do it. I'm trying this in real time, but something like that, but with no eyes because he has the visor. You know? Yeah, like that kind of thing. But like just he does it so purely. Um, I mean, honestly, I like my first like big conception of Cyclops, outside of like the costume from the cartoon, would have probably been James Marsden's Cyclops in the first X Men film. And honestly, like I love Marsden. He's a great actor. He's loved him in Hop too with uh, the digital bunny with Russell Brand's voice, and now he's gonna be hanging out with like a digital hedgehog. Great actor. That's James, same guy. Yeah, James Marsden, pretty sure. Anyway, love the dude. Yeah, I think that's the dude. Anyway, regardless, he's great Cyclops. I mean, he's great as Cyclops, but he might have almost been like too stylish. Like he might have made me like Cyclops too much. Uh, Whereas Ty Sheridan in this film does a great, honest portrayal of like classic Scott Summers. His dynamic with Jean is great, and as I said, he has that uh, perfect mouth. So, cheers for that. Also, cheers for Simon Kinberg for a lot of things. Like, it is so rare for a dude to get a second chance at seeing his vision through without, like, executive interference or whatever, you know? Like, he clearly has been wanting to tell the story of Dark Phoenix for ages. And he tried to squeeze it into The Last Stand, but all sorts of studio notes or whatever got in the way, and that movie didn't uh, turn out to be in tune with his design. I mean, in retrospect, uh, I think that I actually like a lot of the parts of that film that aren't about the plot. Like I don't know, some of the stuff between like Iceman and Kitty is pretty great. There's some like moments in that film, but like it might not hang together that well. And I'm not like that critical, but it I even when I was like 16, I noticed the difference between that and the like definitive um, artistic mastery of X2. Like that felt like a cohesive piece of cinema in a way that can't really be said for Last Stand. Anyway, so yeah, now after like a decade and change, Kinberg returns to the story of Jean Grey's uh, psychic travails, um, with the ability to tell his uh, undiluted interpretation of the classic X-Men tale. Um, and it worked, man. Like I don't know, I don't understand all the hate, and like this is coming from a guy who can't even understand all the hate for Last Jedi and a bunch of other stuff, and like I don't know if you're like disappointed by something, that's one thing, but the sheer like vitriolic tenor that's come out against like Apocalypse, which is my favorite X-Men film, and Dark Phoenix, I just don't understand it. Like I mean, you know what? All right, let's be honest. I can understand the Last Jedi thing in a way because it's not where a lot of people would want their childhood hero to end up. And like I read some of those books, those old like Star Wars books too, where like Luke Skywalker is like succeeding massively as like the head of a new Jedi Academy, and that's just great too. But Last Jedi wasn't that story, whatever. So I can understand how that can get to someone's heart, but like Dark Phoenix was a fine movie, man. I had a great time. X-Men movie with X-Men nonsense. That's what I'm here for. Um, so yeah, and Kinberg finally got to deliver his ancient promise of this story, and he managed to convince Jennifer Lawrence to come back and sit through endless hours of prosthetic application, which she did not want to do. Like I remember being disappointed when Nightcrawler didn't come back for Last Stand because I love Nightcrawler and Alan Cummings is a great actor. He's also played like some of my other favorite characters. Like he was Loki in Son of the Mask, which isn't great, but he was amazing in it. And if you look at it, uh, he seems to be playing like a riff on Marvel Cinematic Universe Loki, despite the fact that his turn in Son of the Mask predates the Thor film by 6 years at least. And he just the whole aesthetic is right there in Alan Cummings' Loki. So that's the best part of that film, by a long shot. Anyway, so yeah, he didn't come back for Last Stand. And at the time, I was like disappointed, but now I can understand why some actors just don't want to exercise the patience that's required to sit in like a makeup chair for hours before they actually get to go in and do the thing that they're there to do, which is acting. Like, listen, sometimes I'll get put on a bill with a bunch of bands and I'll be playing after a bunch of them, and even if they're good, I still can get impatient because I'm there to go out and sing, you know? Like I just want to get on the stage and do my thing. I don't want to like sit around for a bunch of hours before that. And so yeah, I get that. And like I'm not even doing it like on a daily basis, right? Like, I'm not that's not like a daily routine, that's from time to time. So I can definitely understand why you don't want to wake up and spend 7 hours in a chair before you do your acting thing, which is ultimately why you're in the business, right? So yeah, I understand that. But the fact that Jennifer Lawrence, who seems to have less patience for it than many others, which is like fine, it's understandable. Like the fact that like she came back because she trusted Simon Kinberg so much says a lot. Also, I will say this: at one point, the X-Men were antagonized by the Mutant Control Unit or whatever, and then these big letters on their sleeves that said MCU, which uh, seems appropriate in light of all these legal troubles between the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Fox's X-Men franchise. I'll say this to end on. The ending of the movie uh, reminded me of uh, the ending to Dark Knight Rises. And before I could even like say anything, my friend who is like the only person in my life who could possibly lay claim to being a bigger fan of the X Men than I am, says, "Hey, isn't this the ending from The Dark Knight Rises?" Anyway, I mention this because it really made me want to see Xavier hang out with Michael Caine. It wouldn't even have to be with Alfred. I want to see those two guys hang out and talk. I want to hear them talk. You know. Anyway, I didn't get that, but I did get a fine X-Men movie, and I'd recommend it, man. Like, you know, Phoenix, when Jean Grey came back from the dead, a lot of people were annoyed at her for killing a planet of broccoli people or whatever. But eventually she ascended to like the White Hot Room and became, you know, the White Phoenix of the Crown. She's like a god above it all. You know, she's above everything. She's her own cosmic force. And I think that's probably where Simon Kinberg is too now. You know, he's ascended above all the haters, and he's looking down upon his uh, unleaded vision, and he's probably pretty happy. And I've got to give him cheers for that. And like honestly, even if you don't like the film for whatever reason, you still have like a whole excellent cast, and you know, it was great to see these guys for the grand finale. Um, and I want to say that I'll miss them, but I've been surprised before. Like I thought that I'd miss Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, who were like definitive as Xavier and Magneto, especially Stewart. Like even before like an X-Men movie was like on the horizon, everyone's always saying Patrick Stewart is Charles Xavier. Um, but you know, then McAvoy and Fassbender came on the scene, and I love those dudes too, and I think that I'll miss them too. But again, I could be surprised, and if anyone can like hit that casting right on, it'll be the Marvel team. So I love this. I've loved a lot of this franchise. I've loved X Men Apocalypse is my favorite X Men movie of all time, and Dark Phoenix is pretty close. Um, but I'm excited to see where it goes from here. But still, before it gets there, enjoy Dark Phoenix.